Hola, damas y caballeros. My name is Miguel, and I'm here to give you my review, spoiler free, of course, for the 2022 film The Batman. This film stars Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, Jeffrey Wright, and an unrecognizable Colin Farrell. And the cast that I just mentioned is actually probably my favorite thing about this film, and that's because the acting is just superb. It is on point. It is excellent. Everyone really kind of brings their A game in this film, and that is easily the most enjoyable aspect. I think Paul Dano and Colin Farrell specifically really kind of stood out amongst the crowd and devoted themselves to their characters. I didn't even realize I was looking at Colin Farrell. I forgot he was in the movie the almost the entire time. So it was a very beautifully shot, very beautifully acted by this incredible, stunning cast. You can't talk about a superhero movie without talking about the action. And in that aspect, this film does bring the action. It has many moments that are just heart stopping, many moments that are clever in terms of like how the I can't give too much away, but how the bad guys choose to formulate their plans is actually a very interesting new sort of take on the action, which I really enjoyed. And it still had some rough edges. I think Hollywood in general needs to figure out how Batman fights people with guns, because that's always a weird one. It's like he's either unstoppable and he's like just getting shot in the chest and like maybe falling over, even though his chin's completely exposed, or the bad guys are aiming at him and never firing their weapons. It's one of the two in most movies. This one kind of is in the former. He does react to getting shot, but usually only by higher caliber rounds or by like a shotgun. But a pistol would still be able to knock him down. Hey, let's be real. Even if his suit was bulletproof, that force would still be able to knock somebody down. But they do it okay in this movie. It wasn't bad. The hand-to-hand combat probably was, I would say, better than Christopher Nolan's Batman's, but not quite as good as Zack Snyder's Batman. Definitely think that the combat though was really nice. The action was really good. There was even some moments of awe when I just sat back in my seat and said, "That looks badass." that genuinely looks badass. Love that. I obviously can't give away those scenes, but you'll probably recognize them when they come in. Other than that, I think the next best thing to really think about is the cinematography. Cinematography is huge to me. That is kind of my background. I've shot a lot of different projects, including feature films and short films. And to me, cinematography is huge because it's how you tell your story. And in that category is kind of where I start to have my first gripes with this film. And that is, this film is dark. And I mean, dark. Everything is either at night or in the shadows or obscured. It felt for me like my eyes were kind of fighting to find an image a lot of the time. I understand the style. It's very contrasty. It's very kind of the light should lead you where to look. But it happens so much, so often, and so dramatically that it's actually kind of a pain. It's a bit of a chore to try and look at this movie a lot of the time. And you couple that with they have very interesting focus choices. They have a lot of dirty frames, meaning there's stuff in the foreground, like usually out of focus or in focus while the background's out of focus. They have a lot of stuff like this, and you put that all together, and what you get is kind of a smudgy film. I remember the scene with the that's in the trailer, so this isn't really a spoiler. The scene where Penguin's being chased by the Batmobile. It's raining, and even in that scene, the rain covered up so much of the character's face. I could barely really tell who was looking at who and who's looking at who through what mirror and which card's which. It was very difficult a lot of the time. This film is dark. In contrast, I think if you look at the most recent Blade Runner film, that is a very contrasty film. But where the light hits is very properly exposed, where the light hits surrounding that area it has a nice fall off. This film doesn't have that. It feels like a painting where it's like light and dark and that's all you get. There's nothing in the middle. So I think Blade Runner was a good example of how to do that properly. But also this film doesn't have any daytime scenes from really that many, which is a very weird choice. Again, in a film that's aesthetic is meant to be so dark and gritty. And I get the artistic decisions behind it. It just makes for kind of a slog fest when I'm trying to like really focus on what's going on there in the screen. I think that the next thing to talk about is really the story, and I think this is the most important thing to me in a movie is what are you trying to tell me? What is going on here? What's the story? What's the arc? What's happening? And on that front, I'm happy to tell you this film has a good story. It is compelling. It is intriguing. There's many aspects of it. It's kind of a film noir mystery film, and there's many aspects of it where I'm sitting there watching these sort of interrogation moments happen, which happen in a lot of Batman films, right? But I'm watching these scenes unfold, and I'm like, I really, really want to know the answer, and that's actually new. When you think about the old interrogation stories or scenes of like the Dark Knight, when he's holding that one guy in the beginning in the Dark Knight Begins off the rooftop, and he's like hanging him upside down, and like yeah, I think the great part of that scene is hanging somebody upside down and watching Batman toy with them, and of course the most famous Joker scene that has a very compelling turn of events, right? Where we're trying to figure out what's going on here with Harvey Dent, what's going on, and then Rachel gets thrown in there all of a sudden. That was a obviously top tier interrogation scene. This film, this new Batman film, has those top tier interrogation scenes basically throughout. Every time you're with the character and Batman is trying to extract information from them, I feel very invested. I feel very much like, please, I want to know what this person says. And then it's, do I believe it? Because it's such a film noir. It's such a mystery piece. Like, you're just like constantly on your edge of your seat putting pieces together. And in that front, this felt like a true like Batman detective movie. You know, it actually, I would say it was more detective than action oriented. I think the Christopher Nolan Batman's had much more action, whereas this is a very detective heavily based story, which is fine. I think you got to change it up once in a while. I would, I definitely enjoyed it. Now with story, there's still some gripes. There's still some issues that I had with what was going on, and for one, I really didn't feel there was a lot. There's some elements that were brought up that just were brought up in the scene and then never again. That's it. They just dropped off. Also, the film's 3 hours long. About halfway through, I was like, oh, okay, cool. This story's over. That was good. And then it just kind of keeps going. And so for the better, I think, but still with some drawback. Overall, not that many gripes to this movie. Cinematography, knock a couple points off for that. Story-wise, knock a little bit of points for that. Not too much. It did its thing. It was fine. 8 out of 10. Would recommend this movie. Go watch it. If they come out with a sequel, you can bet your behind that I will be there watching the sequel. This film has earned it. Robert Pattinson, great job. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Adios.